Hey everybody, Bruce here with Traveling with Bruce. Today's video is a number of little stories that I've put together for you surrounding the cruise business and the travel world. Hope you enjoy it. We're going to talk about Disney, Carnival, we're going to talk about Norwegian, and we're going to talk a little bit about the airlines too. Thank you for joining me today. Those of you who are subscribing to my channel, I cannot thank you enough for becoming subscribers of Traveling with Bruce. I really appreciate it. Also, those of you giving my video updates thumbs ups, they really help with my channel's analytics. Thank you so much. Also, thanks and welcome those of you who are joining my Facebook group page on for Traveling with Bruce. Head on over there. Look up Traveling with Bruce spelled with two L's and ask to join the Facebook group page. I'll let you in. I'm the administrator. A lot of us hang out there between my live video updates and recorded video updates. Also, Instagram. I think we're going to hit 600 followers today on Instagram. Jennifer cannot believe it. It's absolutely fantastic. Welcome aboard. Let's get into the stories of what's happening here. Today's date, April the 7th, 2020, and I have some updates for you. Number one story I'm going to talk about today is about Disney. The Disney Wonder cruise ship. Now, this ship is right now has been docked in San Diego, and she only has crew on board now. Passengers have long disembarked the ship, but disturbing news is coming out about the Disney Wonder ship, and it's sort of like a Chinese water torture. It's one drop at a time, just kind of to drive one mad. The last thing I mentioned about this ship was yesterday in my live show. I talked about how there were 38 cases of the dreaded virus confirmed among the crew from this ship, and I had also mentioned that there had been at least one or maybe more than one crew member removed from the ship in the past couple of weeks due to illness. I do not know the status of the 38 crew members. I don't know how ill they are, or whether it's just symptoms, whether it's worse. I can't tell you because this is news that is kind of confidential. But I can tell you this. I read today some further information, and I found it from a couple of sources, so it's starting to leak out, that back in February the 27th to March the 2nd, a 74-year-old woman from, I believe, Mississippi was on the ship, took a cruise, and I believe this is a cruise that would have left from New Orleans to Mexico and back. And after she returned home from her cruise, it was a few days after, she became rather ill. And she went to the hospital, was admitted, and was tested, and came back positive for that virus. Now, her family contacted Disney right away. I think the hospital would have probably insisted and probably ensured that this happened, because when someone gets tested and it's a positive, the hospital and health authorities, they want to know, where have you been, who have you been exposed to, and so on, because they want to track down anyone and everyone that's been in touch with this woman anywhere near her. Well, the Disney ship, she was on the Disney Wonder from Feb 27 to March the 2nd, and Disney was notified. Now, the family insists that they notified Disney. I cannot tell you whether or not any health authority did the same. This is something that is just not known at this point. In any event, the thinking here is that Disney knew. But at the time Disney found out this news, the ship was on another cruise. Not a surprise, because all cruise ships, when they are operating normally, will drop off passengers in the morning, and in the afternoon pick up the next load of passengers and head back out to sea for another cruise. In the case of Disney, they were on a 4-day cruise, and then they began looks like a 13-day cruise from New Orleans to San Diego through the Panama Canal. And it was this cruise that now reports are coming out. Passengers who disembarked the Disney Wonder in San Diego on the 19th of March, which is now 18 days ago, because this is April the 7th. There have been a number of reports from a high number of passengers who are testing positive. Now, I don't know for sure if passengers from the March 2nd to March 6th cruise are testing positive, but something tells me that's likely happening as well. But the cruise in question is the 13-day cruise from New Orleans to San Diego, because by the time March 6th rolled around and thereafter, the test results were coming out from the woman in Mississippi. And so Disney knew while these passengers were passing through the Panama Canal and coming all the way up the coast for that 13-day cruise, they knew that they had had a passenger test positive who had just gotten off the ship March the 2nd back in New Orleans. No passengers were notified, and the port authorities were not notified. The ship docked, and as far as I know, there may have been temperatures taken via aiming a little device at the forehead, and people didn't show symptoms. They were let go. Off they went. And these folks went out into the general population. They got on commercial aircraft out of San Diego. They would have spent some time in San Diego, perhaps. A bunch of folks probably live in San Diego. And others probably flew home back to the east if that's where they were originally coming from. Anyway, this is a problem. And the question now that's being bandied about is what was the obligation of the Disney company and the Disney Cruise Line with respect to notifying people on the ship. Now, we can understand 38 crew members are now testing positive, and that number may change, of course, going forward. You can understand why. These crew members, they got ill from the passengers who got ill from, it's just around and around and around this goes. The woman who originally became ill, the question is, how did she get ill? That's the other proverbial question. The 74-year-old was likely ill before she even got on the cruise ship back in February the 27th. And so this detective story is happening now, obviously over 1 million times over on the planet, and in the United States alone, over 386,000 as of this morning. So this is a wonder. Now the question, of course, is Disney liable for not telling the passengers on board that someone who had been on the previous cruise had tested positive? Did the officials at Disney Cruise really know, or did the notification go to management at Disney but not to the Disney Cruise Line? Did it go to the Disney Cruise Line and it didn't go any further? This is being investigated, and I have no idea how this is going to come out. Will there be any legal ramifications for this, and or any, say, lawsuits brought forward for costs, loss of income, perhaps fatalities? I don't know. I mean, this is one of those, open-ended questions. And of course, a lot of people are saying, maybe all cruise lines are liable for this. Maybe they aren't. But also, can you not then argue that airlines are liable, and bus companies and subway lines and who knows what? Anyway, it just goes on and on and on. Anyway, that's the Disney story. It's evolving. I'll keep you posted as I hear more. Story number 2. Norwegian Cruise Line announced yesterday that they are doing what I thought and I figure cruise lines are going to be doing. Norwegian is just kind of one of the first out of the gate here. The story out of Norwegian is they are offering 5 freebies if you book a cruise. Now, Norwegian wants to get bookings on their accounts even during the shutdown, and they're saying to people out there, if between now and April the 14th, for the next week or so, you book a cruise on Norwegian going forward, we'll throw in 5 free offers, and those would include the drink package. You'll still have to pay tips, of course. Shore excursions, specialty dining is being thrown in. Again, tips extra. Wi-Fi is included. Kids sail free. They're trying to get families on here. 2-for-1 deposit. So if you're thinking about booking your mom and dad are thinking about booking a cruise with 2 kids, you only need to come up with a deposit for one of the adults. Talk about an offer. And with that deal, you are guaranteed all these benefits. They're also throwing credits, room credits, up to $200, depending on how long you're sailing for and what cabin classification you're going to book. And as long as the cruise is 3 nights or longer, this deal is available, but it's only available to new cruisers only. In other words, fresh cash. Fresh cash deposit is what they'd like to get, and they're offering the 5 freebies. I expect this kind of offering to become standard fare. I would not be surprised that those of you out there who even have cruises booked that you've put a cash deposit down for, you may, I'm not guaranteeing it, but don't be surprised if we start hearing stories from certain cruise lines out there that'll say like, hey, we've got your deposit and we can't wait to see you in 6 months or next year or whenever the cruise is. If you pay in the next 30 days your cruise in full, we'll throw you all kinds of freebies on top of everything else. And they'll encourage you to cough up cash now for a cruise later to get additional free offers. Don't be surprised, because cruise lines want to raise cash. They want to have bookings booked. They want the Wall Street people to know that we are full up. There won't be any downturn when we kind of start cruising again. Now, I can tell you that for the year 2021, next year's sailing schedule, reservations are up 9% already over 2020 before all this nonsense began, just so you know. So the cruise lines are trying to just pad the numbers even higher if they can, and they want to avoid having to give away the farm if at all possible. But there are instances starting to show up where they're giving away the farm because more and more passengers are in effect canceling out, or their cruises are being canceled on them. They get the cruise credits or their refunds. A lot of them are requesting refunds. A lot of them are taking the credit. But they're not necessarily calling the cruise line right away to rebook right away. They're sitting back wondering whether or not I should book now or not. So that's what's happening on that story. All right. Story number 3 is about Carnival Cruise Lines. The company raised $6.5 billion last week through a bond offering and a bit of a stock offering. And they were able to raise. They were looking to raise about $5 to $6 billion. They raised $6.5, I believe, when it was all said and done. But they were offered $17 billion of cash for a bond offering that was only going to be $5 billion. Just to give you an idea, so that is tripled, almost 3.5 times. So for every dollar they wanted to raise, they were being offered $3.5 by investment groups. And the bankers, J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Bank of America brokerage division, they had a no-brainer in selling out, oversubscribing this offering. Now, Norwegian did offer and is paying 12% interest on $4 billion of that money. They were going to take $3 billion. They decided they would take $4, but had to offer 12% interest. And then they're paying 5.75% interest on another $2 billion or so. And then they raised $500 million in stock sales. And as I reported yesterday, the country of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund, with $300 billion in assets, they apparently put in about $350 million into stock buys on the open market. And we're now waiting to hear in the next filing by the end of April, we'll probably know whether they bought any of this offering. I would be surprised if they didn't, that they would have definitely jumped on the offering for more. But that offering, as I said, was oversubscribed 3.5 to 1. And that's a sign of how much cash is available for cruise lines who want to come to the street and say, hey, we want to raise some cash. Very interesting. All right. 2 more stories for you. Both of these are not necessarily in the cruise ship realm, but I got to tell you, we have to hear stories like I'm about to tell you, because if we don't see what I'm about to tell you happening and getting better, there won't be any cruising. So when people always ask me, Bruce, when is cruising going to start again? And I tell you that there are many factors, of one of which is the airline business. And here's a stat that is a shocker. For April the 6th, 2020, yesterday, 108,000 people took a flight on an American airline in the United States. A year ago, 2,380,000 people took a flight on U.S. Airlines. So from 108,000 to almost 4 million. That's 1/24 or 4% of the traffic, approximately 4.5%. That's how bad it is. So we're down over 95% in air traffic. Until air traffic returns, folks, there won't be any cruises because cruise lines cannot count on people just driving to the ports. That's not going to make it. They might get 10 ships in the water that way, maybe 15, but there's no way that they can get all the ships in the water without air traffic. And the last story is another airline story. It's about United Airlines, and I found this a fascinating story. I don't know if you've heard, but here's the deal. United right now is considering reinstating their daily flights from San Francisco to China. Now, they're looking at a particular route. It's the most successful air route that they have in their airline for China travel. It's San Francisco to Shanghai. And the flight is so popular that they were running 2 round-trip flights a day to Shanghai and back from San Francisco, just to give you an idea how popular that route is. I believe they're using a 777, and that probably holds over 300 people per trip. So that's a pretty powerful route. Now, here's the shocker, and this just blew my mind. Why would United be interested in getting that route up again, apart from the fact it was 2 round trips a day? Because their number one customer is Apple. Do any of you have an iPhone or iPods or an iPad or a Apple computer or anything like that? Apple has and had reserved 50 business class seats per day to Shanghai and back. That equals $35 million a year in airfare, and that equaled 25% of all the money that United was bringing in for that flight alone. A quarter of all the airfare money was from Apple in business class. And that's why they are desperate to get that route up and running again, because Apple employees support American businesses, of course, and United, being a U.S. airline, makes sense. San Francisco is the nearest international airport for Apple employees out of Cupertino, and Shanghai in China is where you go if you're an Apple employee, because the factories that are utilized to manufacture Apple product and the technicians over there are all in that region. So this is how important it is just for United to get flights up and running again to Shanghai. It's all about business. It's not about pleasure or leisure. It's all about business, and we're talking business class seats. So kids, if you're a young kid out there and you're into software and you want to work for an up-and-coming tech company, you might want to consider getting a job with Apple. And maybe you want to consider the kind of job that has you fly to places like Shanghai to conduct business meetings, because you're going business class, baby. And that's why you study so hard in school. You can get a job like that. Well-paying, good perks, not a bad gig. Of course, you talk to an Apple employee that's done 50 of these flights. Maybe after the 10th or 15th flight, it's not so exciting anymore. But on the outside looking in, pretty sexy stuff, I gotta say. Anyway, wish I were 30 and in that business, but I'm a YouTuber. What can I say? Anyway, thank you, folks, for joining me today. There's a little roundup for you of a couple of different stories that are going on right now. We'll stay on top of these. Thanks again for subscribing and commenting on my videos and sending me thumbs ups. I really appreciate it. And come on over to the Facebook group page. Join us on Instagram. In the meantime, stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you later. Bye for now.